Hey everybody, this is a 1990 Mazda Miata. It's in need of some serious help. Bought it from a guy that told me a little bit about it. He said it was an autocross car, doesn't have power steering or air conditioning. They replaced the fuel pump and a few other things, but overall the compression in cylinder 3 and 4 was pretty much nothing. So sounds like it either needs some rings or a head gasket or something like that. So we're gonna get started on it. Unfortunately, I deleted the footage of me actually taking the engine out of the car, so it jumps right to the engine on the stand. So some of the first things that come off the engine are the valve cover, obviously. Make sure the camshafts are all right, no crazy gouges or nothing. Next thing I took off was the water pump pulley and the belts. Right after that, I pulled one of the engine mounts off, and it wasn't even torqued all the way down. So the crank pulley is always a fun one. At the time, I didn't have an air compressor big enough to pull the crank pulley off, so I had to put some flywheel bolts in and wait for my compressor to build up. So then Aaron decided to come in and help me take the rest of the engine apart. So here we go. And then the one over here. And then alternate as you go. So the next one will be that one. Looks like the majority of the oil either came from the pan, possibly up here somewhere. Looks like there's probably a couple of leaks, probably somewhere up here and down in here with the pan. This one's not even tight. So it looks like the head gasket actually went bad. There's a chunk missing right here. So after we pulled the cylinder head off, I think they actually used a 1.8 head gasket on this 1.6. It was funny, all the ports seemed to not really line up correctly. All of them just seemed to have a little too much room with the head gasket, so it's definitely possible that this is the cause of the failure. And ignoring the quality, there's the overview shot of all the stuff we pulled off. Alternator, valve cover, cylinder head, and everything else. So at this point, we're pretty deep into the engine. We're gonna pull off the water pump and the oil pump as well. The oil pan actually has to come off before the oil pump. The worst part about taking the oil pan off is actually the oil pickup tube between the oil pan and the block. It's actually only sandwiched between, so the bolts that hold the oil pan on to the block are the same ones that hold the baffle in. It's just really hard to separate the two. A lot of times I'll just take a scraper and lightly tap between the two if you can clearly tell the difference between the pan and the actual baffle itself. So I'm getting started on the cylinder head. I've got a valve spring compressor tool to help me get the valves out. They are a huge pain in the butt without that tool. I don't even know if it's honestly possible, but you pull the keepers out and you can push the valves back through the cylinder head. Got some valve grinding compound and a couple other unique tools to try to get the valves reseated. I actually kind of came up with this process on my own. I haven't seen anybody else do this before, probably because they actually buy the right tool to do it, but for me, I just use this golf tee and I put some hot glue on the base of the tee, stick it to the valve, and twist it as many times as I can, and then repeat the process on the next one. If you're not familiar with the process, you put the grinding compound on the seat of the valve, put it back in, and then you twist it left and right to, basically grind the valve seat again. One thing that I think a lot of people forget about are valve stem seals. These ones come with the kit, and the old ones were pretty solid, so a lot of times if they don't have any kind of flex, they're not going to give you a good seal, so got to get rid of them and put some new ones in. I've got the oil pump installed and the water pump goes up next. These paper gaskets are really not my favorite, but usually what I do is put a bead of silicone on before the gasket, then one after, and then install the part. And I know I'm jumping ahead about 5,700 steps, give or take, but this is mostly the engine done. I either corrupted the files trying to upload them or just all around lost the footage, so here goes installing the flywheel and the clutch and torquing them all down, getting them ready to put in the car. Was lucky enough to have a couple friends come over to help me put the engine back in the car. It's always way easier when you're not putting an engine back in all by yourself. Just finishing up all the intake and whatever else, filling it up with fluids and getting ready to start it. It's about time to start it. I've double checked everything, put the new spark plugs in, oil level's good, coolant's good, all the clamps that I could find are tight. You just kind of double check everything that you've already gone through. The car's battery's super dead and I have a pretty poor battery charger, so I'm gonna try to jump start it. This is it, first start since the rebuild. I thought the fuel pump was dead. It wasn't cutting on, couldn't hear anything. So I did some research and figured out that the fuel pump only runs while you're cranking it. That made it really hard to listen to see if it was kicking on. So I did some more checking and the fuel pump is connected to the main relay up in there. So I checked the wiring just for shits and giggles and 2 connectors weren't even connected. So this will be the first time it starts hopefully under its own power, and let's see how it goes. Probably helps if I push the clutch in. So with the first startup, usually the valve lifters make a boatload of noise. It's definitely super common with this engine. A lot of people complain about the noise of the lifters, but once it's warmed up, it's usually alright. And if not, then you know you need to clean them or replace them. Thanks everybody for watching my first video. I got a lot of stuff done on the first episode. Definitely took a lot longer to film than I wanted to. I'm going to try to be a lot more consistent about it. And now that it's my fun car and I'm not selling it, I'm going to do a lot more mods to it. Stuff like turbos, steering knuckle mods, hopefully taking it out to a drift event or 3 or 5 or whatever I can afford. So if you guys are down to see some serious amateur fabrication, you're more than welcome to stay tuned to the next few episodes. All right, here goes for the mandatory share, like, and subscribe section. Feel free to give me a thumbs up. Everything's appreciated. Thanks, guys.